Hi everyone, I'm Ollie Brand and welcome to the Recipes for Success podcast. Now, with this podcast, we look to empower hospitality entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs to break the mold and focus on realizing their potential, no matter where they are in the industry or even if they're not in the industry yet. And we've got a return guest for you today. It's Katy Moses, the founder of KAM Insights. Now, Katy shares a treasure trove of insights today that any hospitality professional can put into action immediately. So without further ado, let's get into it. Well, Katy, thank you for coming on the podcast. Welcome back. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak. I'm going to jump straight into it. And could you give me a short market summary of 2023 in your view?
Thank you for having me, Ollie. It's nice to see you again. Okay, so 2023 has been, in my mind and certainly in our clients' minds, the hardest year of trading that we've ever seen. Of course, a lot of people will say, yes, but what about COVID? But during COVID, there was support. And after the pandemic, a lot of that support has fallen away. Some of it is still there, but certainly not to the extent that we require it in order for the industry to survive and thrive, I think is the tried and tested phrase that people are using. So because it's been tough, what we've seen is the hospitality industry time and time again pick itself up, dust itself off, and keep going. And I think that the resilience that the industry has shown has been absolutely unbelievable, and the innovation that we're seeing, the effort that we're seeing, the companies that are trying to not pivot like they did in the pandemic, but to reach all different types of customers, use all different day parts, use all of the venues that they've got. There's this idea that it's got a bit scrappy out there, I think. It's very much, you've just got to do what you can to bring the people through the door and to convince them to stay with you, to spend with you, to return to you. I think that we are seeing customer in 2023 has also become way more demanding than we've ever seen before. And that is because they are, the customer themselves are also suffering from the cost of living crisis. So if they're going to go out and they're going to spend money on food and drink and an experience, that experience better be damn good, because there is no room for mediocrity. There is no room for us not giving somebody the most perfect experience that they can't get from their home. And I think that that's what we've seen in 2023 is just like those standards have really increased. The innovation in the industry has increased. And all of that is because of the customer demand.
Yeah, well, on that topic, so you just mentioned that no room for mediocrity. And you mentioned depth of mediocrity and spoke about value for money in your recent pub roadmap report.
Yeah.
What insight could you share for someone listening that they could put into action immediately?
Blimey. Well, okay, there's two major trends that come out of the pub roadmap report, which I agree with you, by the way, is fantastic. We are very proud of that here at KAM, and it was a delight as well because we were working alongside the BII, which is obviously something we love to do. But yeah, so there were two trends that I think that we can be looking at as hospitality operators to capitalize on. The first one is the idea of premiumization. Now, that can strike fear into the heart of value retailers, value operators. But actually, premiumization does not necessarily mean quaffing £500 bottles of champagne and eating caviar and oysters, although that sounds like a fantastic way to spend a Friday afternoon, if you ask me. But what it means is just upping the level of the participation of the customer, essentially. So can you upsell them from, just a normal pint of beer up to a craft beer? Can you make sure that they do order that dessert rather than just get their coffees and off they go? The idea of premiumization really can be used across all value areas. So whether that's premium or whether that is sort of your value community local, either way, it's about getting that little bit of extra spend and also about increasing the enjoyment of the experience from the customer's point of view. So some of the research that we did, for example, said that people would rather have 2 well-made, well-presented premium gin and tonics rather than 3 average ones. So it's just all about, again, that experience. And then the other trend that I think came out of the pub roadmap report is the idea of personalization. And I think that the figures were something along the lines of 71% of consumers wanted to be able to personalize their food. So customize their food when they order in a pub, bar, or restaurant. And I think it was about 56% for drinks. Where we had a bit of an issue is that only around 56%, I believe, of licensees believed that it was necessary that they could customize food and drink orders for their customers. Customization and personalization also leads to a better experience. It's a bit like, well, I'm getting exactly what I want, you know, so somebody is working around exactly what I need and my likes and dislikes. And I think that it's important to know, and if anyone's ever seen me present before, I always say this, but I am a big believer that the gin boom in the UK in the last 10 years is all to do with personalization, because you can, in most occasions, pick your glass, pick your gin, pick your garnish, pick your tonic. And actually, it's that idea of being able to personalize the offer that is attractive to the UK hospitality consumer. So yeah, personalization, premiumization, I think that they go pretty hand in hand. And I think that they are the trends where we could possibly capitalize with customers.
That's pretty fascinating. In terms of the broader hospitality sector, which businesses are you seeing get it right, and why do you think they're getting it so right?
Oh, okay, that's a great question. We've trying to think of some of the people we've worked with recently. Listen, competitive socializing is obviously, I think it's about 40% year on year up in sales. I think that it is here to stay. It's been really interesting to watch the customer mix for that area of hospitality. So the customer mix was traditionally much younger, much more male. And actually we're seeing the demographics change within that as it becomes a bit more accessible to all. And I think part of that is because it's not just in the major big cities and it's not just an afterworks type experience. I think that the casual dining market is, I wouldn't say in trouble, but there have been some worrying signs from that particular part of the market. However, the ones that are doing it right are really doing it right. So you take people like Dishoom, you take Rosa's Thai, all of those people, the people that have got this very definite customer offering. They know exactly who they're targeting their food and drink to. They know exactly who are likely to be walking through their door. They are spending a lot of resource on research and understanding who that customer is. And I think, you know, I'm in a research company. Of course, I'm going to say that. But the more you know your customers right now, the more chance you have of succeeding. And if I had a pound, Ollie, for every time somebody said to me, oh, no, we know exactly who our customers are. And then I kind of look into it and it's absolutely not who they think it is. You know, the customer experience has to be paramount, and you can only provide a fantastic customer experience if you know what your customers are looking for.
Yeah, well, actually, if we could dive into that for a second. So I mean, marketing is a sort of a topic, a massive topic of conversation, especially in the hospitality sector, because direct to consumers, and especially in this digital age, there's a perception that marketing is just sending messages out, you know, one-way communication channel. But I think how, you know, just explain yourself, because, you know, you live and breathe it, research and best practices for marketing in this day and age that operators can kind of take advantage of.
Yeah, I think, so, I mean, we've done so much research in this area in 2023. In fact, the 2 areas that we've done the most research in is that sort of how do we market to customers, and also then a lot of employee engagement stuff that we're being asked to do at the moment. I think from a marketing perspective, gone are the days of the cookie cutter approach. Okay, we cannot just be sending out blanket emails to our entire customer database saying, come and watch the rugby here and get a free pint of X. it's not good enough anymore, because customers are more demanding. They want to be offered something that works for them. And actually, interestingly, I think some research we ran recently, I think 61% of customers, of consumers, are very happy to share their personal details with a pub, bar, or restaurant, or competitive socializing, any kind of leisure venue, as long as it leads directly to a more targeted approach towards them. So, yeah, I'll give you my email address and you can drop me a weekly email about what's going on in your bar or in your restaurant. But don't invite me to the things that I'm not going to be interested in. Get to know me. Take the time to make sure that you're targeting me in the right way. And that figure actually even goes higher for the younger demographic as well, because the idea that they might get some kind of targeted discounts, or something that they can enjoy with their friends, whether it's a special dish or whatever it might be. But that idea that it's a personalized experience really, really matters.
I think what, in terms of GDPR is something that comes up, isn't it? And people being comfortable sharing their details. How are you seeing that differ? Because in some of the reports you share with me, I've seen the kind of generational differences as well. And is there, as the youngsters are coming through, is there more around data privacy? Are they more risk averse towards it, or is it like, what's the general gist?
The general gist is that the younger demographic, who spend 7 hours plus a day on their phones, are data driven themselves. They know that every single website they're going on is tracking them. They know that they are likely to be contacted about, a new car, if they've been looking up new cars, whatever it might be. It's not that they're less risk averse, they just see it as part of life. Whereas the older demographic are a little bit shyer when it comes to sharing data, and they're not digital natives. They haven't grown up all of their lives with this thing in their hand that can do anything they need it to do, as long as you give it some of your data and some of your insight and information. So I think that as time goes by, the people that are loath to share their data for a good reason and for the right reason will dissipate somewhat, I believe.
Yeah, the value in it, in terms of, marketing or advertising, it has I think it's a blanket term. It has negative association anyway. When you think about the history, like Cambridge Analytica and Facebook and all the things that happen there, but a well-timed advert for something that you actually want, and you get it, and there's something you wouldn't have seen otherwise. That's a great thing. It's a great thing.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that the clever operators and suppliers, of course, who are supplying into those operators, will be doing exactly that. Will be targeting the right people for the right products, and for the right experiences, and actually streamlining your marketing to the point whereby you aren't just throwing as much at the wall as possible and seeing what sticks, is a positive anyway, because it's much less, it's much more reward for a lot less effort, essentially.
Yeah. Just want to go back a bit. You mentioned that operators this year have been really scrappy, and one of the terms you actually mentioned on our previous episode was sweating assets. And
yes,
I think that, it's a great expression. But like in terms of methods that people can put, like things that people can put into action, like how are you seeing some more examples of that scrappiness in action, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. And when I say scrappy, I mean they're sort of scrapping for every sort of bit of business and every penny. Yeah, absolutely. I don't mean they're doing it in a bad way, not at all. In fact, some of the, as I said, some of the most amazing innovations have happened over the last couple of years. Sweating assets for me is all about, it's not just about the venue. It's about absolutely everything. It's about taking a really good look at your business and not making any decisions that don't automatically or in the end improve the customer experience. Always start with the customer. I think that when you're sweating assets, you need to think of several different areas. So yes, of course, you've got to think of the venue. What can I be doing upstairs because I've got a spare function room upstairs? Or what can I be doing down in the basement? And there's some great examples of that. Pizza Pilgrims, for example, their venue in Brighton, I believe, has like a small football pitch downstairs in the basement, like what do they call the like
side.
Yeah. So, and they've got a little bar down there as well. So it's great. People come in, they finish their pizza, and then they go and play a game, or vice versa, whatever it is. So it's about sweating the asset of the venue, of course. It's also about sweating the assets of your staff. So we are seeing more and more, especially the younger demographic, of what we call a portfolio career. So that idea that I've got lots of different irons and lots of different fires. So I might have, this is my job number one is my rent payer. Job number two is my passion project. Job number three is a side hustle, So the idea that people go into one job and stay blinkered in that job, I think is actually leaving us. And I think that's a great thing. You've got quite a lot of businesses who are now training up staff in 4 or 5 different roles, and they might only get to the basic level of each, but it means that they can jump on the pass when they're needed, or they can go out and clear classes, or they can do whatever is necessary. So I think that making sure that you're utilizing your staff to the best of their ability, and helping them to develop, I think is another sweating the asset opportunity. Of course, you've also got to look at all the day part, week part, etc. I mean, if you're not serving breakfast, are you sure that you shouldn't be serving breakfast? And what are you doing hour by hour, day by day, throughout the week that utilizes the time, the staff, the space that you've got? I think that that's incredibly important. And then finally, I would say it's about product as well. So unless you are someone like Pizza Pilgrims, they do pizza. That's what they do. They're not going to suddenly like launch a seafood concept under the name Pizza Pilgrims, although you never know. I'll ask them what they're planning on doing. But unless you are a specialist, if you're Rosa's Thai or if you're Pizza Pilgrims, then what products can you be bringing in that are a little bit different? What can be new? What can you impress the customer with when they come in? We know that customers, when they look at menus in restaurants, for example, the first thing they look at is the price. We know that that's always going to be the case unless we all suddenly become some kind of socialist country. But the second thing that people look at is, what are the specials? And it's because it's something that, again, it's, oh, okay, well, this is interesting. This is something I can't do at home, or it's something I might not be able to have again. So I'm definitely going to have that. So again, it's about sweating that asset of using different products, whether that's food, whether that's drinks, whatever it is, to create that great experience for customers.
Yeah, totally. There's a lot of flexibility around that. How are you seeing technology innovation drive the hospitality industry forward? And are you seeing like opportunities for entrepreneurs or people, or the existing businesses and people within them, to innovate in different ways?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not a technology, I'm not a knowledgeable person when it comes to technology, but I do know what seems to work with our customers. I think that we can get caught up with just putting in technology for technology's sake in some places. I just don't think that it's adding, again, going back to the customer experience. Is it adding to the customer experience? So is it taking away some of the menial back office tasks so that the team are freed up to give a better customer experience, or is it directly adding to the customer experience? And I think where we see success is, for example, great one is tip jar. So tip jar, where you've got a QR code and you scan and the money goes straight into the server's pockets, essentially. I mean, I think it's collated monthly or whatever it might be. That solves a problem for the back office. It makes the team happier and it makes the customer happier because they are convinced that the money is going straight to the person that is serving them, and that, therefore they feel that they are contributing in the right way. I think that order and pay is really interesting area. Obviously, this came about almost completely in the pandemic. I'm trying desperately to think of that. There might have been a couple of brands that did it, but I think pretty much, you know, that was a new innovation in the pandemic. We just have to be careful because not everybody wants to use a QR code. Some people want a paper menu, and research that we have done with restaurant customers say it ends up being pretty split, actually, whether people want a paper menu or card menu, whatever, or whether they want the QR code. So again, it's about the customer experience. Give them the choice.
Yeah, totally. And have you seen? I completely agree with you. By the way, no technology for technology's sake, and it's got to serve a practical purpose. Have you seen or experienced anyone getting caught up in the AI hype in any way, or have you? I mean, in terms of actual practical purposes for it, but also where it's like it's a slight distraction. In your opinion?
I've only slightly explored the AI side of things. I haven't got my head quite into it yet. So you're probably better off asking that question to someone else. But what I will say is nothing can ever take the place of really good hospitality. And there has to be a human feeling behind that. So for me, AI is about taking away those odious tasks that you don't want to do, and that then again frees up the team to do more creative side of things. So for me, AI is the same as any kind of technology. It just must serve a really, really useful purpose, and it mustn't take away from the hospitality experience.
I couldn't agree more. I've noted one of the observations that you've flagged in the report, which I thought was really interesting, was the importance of, I guess, networking and building relationships and partnerships within the industry. So you're saying like turning a competitor into a more of a collaborative mindset. I think, have you got any tips for those in the sector in terms of why you do that and the benefits of doing so as well? And I guess broadening your network as well, because collaboration is definitely becoming more needed, share best practice, all that stuff. So, you know, thoughts on that?
I mean, look, I'm a big fan of a collab. I think that collaborating with people within your industry is not just the right thing to do, but it's essential. Again, during the pandemic, we saw people sort of pulling together to help each other. And you know, this is not a new thing. I think sometimes we get carried away and sort of think, oh, look at us doing all this new stuff. But you know, back in the 1800s, 1700s, pubs would share beer barrels. They would, you know, they would help each other out if they went out of stock. You know, they would have the knockers going around from pub to pub to say when there was somebody that was unsavoury, you know, locally. So, you know, we've been collaborating as an industry for years. Where I think we have got to now is that people are starting to see that the sum is greater than the parts. And that actually working together to provide, again, for the customer, to provide something the customer wants is incredibly important. I also think, you know, we have to be willing to admit failure. We have to know when we're not going to be that good at something, and we therefore should be working with someone else to do it. And a great example of that is a pub company who will remain nameless, who I worked with about 5 years ago, who wanted to create their own coffee brand. And they piled hundreds of thousands of pounds into this coffee brand and never launched it because it just wasn't much good. So then they did a JV with somebody else. And I think that we have to see collaboration as something that is for the greater good, and not just sort of bury our heads in the sand thinking that we're doing a great job at something when actually somebody else can do it better.
Yeah, for sure. And in terms of things that are coming up in the next year, I mean, it'd be a great place to end. Actually, what are your headline predictions for 2024? Big question.
Like Mystic Meg. Right. What are my big predictions? I believe that we are going to see a little bit of consolidation within the pub market specifically. I think we're going to see some of the big six swallowing up some of the smaller multiple operators. I think that in general, competitive socializing is going to continue to grow. What I'd really like to see from that side of things is their food offering increased. and improved, I should say. If you go to somewhere like Clay's, they've got fantastic food offering, but there's a lot of beige food elsewhere. So I'd really like them to start becoming a bit more of an all-round hospitality experience rather than just focused on whatever the competitive socializing element is. I think that restaurant-wise, we are going to struggle in the middle a little bit. I think the premium seems to be doing absolutely fine, and as does value. And as I said before, those with a really solid, specific offering who know who they are and know who their customers are, I think will continue to thrive. Late night is obviously, you know, the decrease in late night has been, well, it's been heartbreaking really, because I just think about when I was in my sort of like early 20s and stuff and going out clubbing and dancing, and, you know, one by one, a lot of those venues are leaving us, which is a real shame. But I think that late night will continue to evolve itself. And again, it just needs to be more than shots and a dance floor now. I think that overall the industry is going to have a really tough first part of the year. And I hope that depending on interest rates, et cetera, that customers, I think, will hopefully start to spend again come summer, is my thoughts.
Amazing, Katy. Thank you so much. That's a perfect place to finish. I really appreciate you taking the time, and I think people will find this so useful. Is there any other topics you want to touch on?
No. It's been quite interesting actually. I've almost sort of ordered my own mind as to what I'm thinking for next year. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough. It's a tough industry to work in at the best of times, but it's also the best industry in the world, in my view. So I am sure that those that put the effort in and that get to know their customers and make sure their customers have an amazing experience will do well by the end of next year.
Incredible. Thank you so much, Katy.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it. I hope you found Katy's insights as useful as I did, and we're going to have a laser focus on the experience. Please don't hesitate to get in touch if you have any thoughts to the podcast, and please don't hesitate to share, like, and subscribe. But for now, thank you very much for listening.